Welcome to TARTLEcast with your hosts Alexander McKegg and Jason Rigby, where humanity steps into the future and source data defines the path.
Mr. McKegg.
Mr. Rigby.
This is interesting. I had a friend yesterday tell me she brought her boyfriend over to her parents' house. Okay. And she's like, you need to call my dad the last name. He's kind of like that.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, in 2020, fixing to be 2021, we're really like a dad would want.
Chauvinistic.
I know. It's just funny to me.
You need to call me by my last name.
Mr. So-and-so. Yeah. And so her boyfriend is sitting there saying, Mr. So-and-so.
You had already
to introduce. It's like, no, if somebody said that, I'd say, no, call me Jason.
Yeah.
I want to get to know you as a person because you're dating my daughter.
Yeah, because when you
I want to really know you. So I'm going to give you some beers. And if you're over 21,
I don't want to walk in and feel like it's a hierarchy and I got to like prostrate on the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I want to be friends with this dude.
Yeah.
So make sure he treats my daughter right.
It already gives like the notion of like no chill. And I'm
yes.
like, oh man.
Yeah. That's what she said. She said they was walking up to her room. And she was behind him and he was walking up the stairs, to her room. And his whole back was solid sweat. It's just nervous meeting the parents for the first time.
Yeah, no, I hear it.
And then he throws out, you got to do the Mister.
Yeah,
that would
rough.
make me nervous. Yeah.
No, man, that's brutal.
Speaking of Mister, the big MR period.
Yeah, the
Let's talk about aerospace and defense markets with big data.
There was some giant report that came out.
Yes.
Talk about, like what's trending for big data in aerospace. It's funny, like, not much has changed in aerospace since the early 50s.
Yeah.
Like the SR-71 came out with like these big Pratt Whitney turbine engines, right? You have the U-2 spy plane. Okay. That flies high. And then while they were doing that, they were designing, the SR-71 with a slide rule. And that thing flies high and fast and takes photos, right? And then after that, you had the XB7 Valkyrie or whatever it was called or something along that, and they only built like 3 of them. But apart from that, engines really haven't. Not much has happened in aerospace.
Even on the rocket side of things, the same rocket systems are set. It looks the same as something from the 60s.
It's exactly the same. We've just retuned some of the aerodynamics and maybe some of the efficiencies. I don't even know if they use liquid oxygen anymore. I'm not sure what that is, but really a lot hasn't changed. And, our CAD models for how we design things, with engineering, it's already plugged in with all the physics. So, design on a computer pretty much tells you a lot of what's going on. So when I look at aerospace and defense and big data, the only thing that really comes to mind is almost like an Edward Snowden kind of thing, where the government, from a defense standpoint, wants to analyze and collect as much information as possible.
Of course.
And then it wants to index it so that it can search through it. And then I don't know if the system, if it was actually called X key score,
right?
Which was that thing where you can just literally type in whatever you want and it pulls up information on anyone, anywhere, anything that ever touched the internet. Courtesy of the National Security Administration, the CIA and Google. But, when we look at the defense report, it's like, what is it that you're going to be able to tell us with big data when it comes to airlines? You're using the fuel inefficiently. We're going to retool our Rolls-Royce, turbine engines better. We don't have to have 5 on the plane. We can actually, or, 1 on the tail. I know that's an odd number. But like, what is it that is like truly like a key driver for defense? And it's going to be tracking, things that deal with like cyber warfare,
right? Satellite and all that,
satellite, people are going to be able to hack the system. It's going to be a function of, security, speed, and, reach.
Yes.
I think those are, when we look at that report, those are the 3 major things that you're going to see in defense, because we have more cloud computing that's happening.
Right.
Processing is becoming a lot faster. People are becoming more connected, and you got to worry about security problems of other countries getting your information. And then once they have it, the question is, well, what are they doing with it? So now you want to actually trace where that data is moving back and forth. So that a lot of that defense spending is going to be on that tracing. It's all going to be is like, where did the source of that information come from? How is it being used? And how do we keep it secure?
No, I love that. But there's a good side of it. We always look at I was listening to a podcast and they were interviewing a CMO of this big private contractor for defense. And they have all these satellites, and they're just using it for, DARPA and all that. But she was saying that they helped, I think it was New York Times. I'm not positive on that, but I think it was New York Times. And then they ended up winning awards for this. But they use their satellites to catch human trafficking in the oceans.
Yeah, no, that's cool stuff. And I'm not human trafficking, but the fact that you can use a satellite sitting in low Earth orbit,
right?
Bouncing down,
find a boat,
some sort of radar or sonar,
watch the people in the other boat transfer over, and be able to collect that.
No, that's incredible, right? And so when you're using, like defense money, using like technology, high technology like that, to analyze things for the preservation of human life and the quality of life. That's a really cool way to spend your defense budget.
Drones replanting forests.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Replanting forests, I don't know if that has a lot to do with, defense,
right?
In aerospace, but there's some neat aspects to that. And there are a lot of positive benefits. And we focus a lot on the tracking and like a lot of the spending does go down towards a militaristic effort. But, a lot of those things do get retooled and they're used for other purposes that are, preventative in a good way.
Right. And I think on the defense side of things, whenever you look at, China and you look at some of these other large countries, and I know India has done a big push with putting satellites up.
Yeah.
But, we're just trying to, it almost seems like, especially here in the United States, and I know TARTLE's a global company, so we'll speak to this globally, but we're everyone's reacting to each other. So it's just creating this, you remember as a kid, you would put your hand on the other person's hand. Yeah. And then
who gets to the top?
Big stack. Yeah. And it's like, who created the stack in the first place?
Yeah, who started that gravy train?
Yeah. And then this is like each country's putting, as soon as we can afford it, we're going to do this. Iran released the, we got nuclear warheads, we don't know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we did that in the 40s. It was a mistake. Yes. It was a total mistake.
North Korea's like everything that they have in their school systems is like songs to sing to missiles.
Yeah, I know that. And so when, we're looking at the spending, remember the space race?
Yes.
It's like we get so caught up in a rat race of spending, even from a defense side, right? Connectivity is great, but now it's like everybody wants to have a satellite. And what you're going to find is that, companies will have their own personal satellites soon,
right?
Because everyone's going to want to push out their own media outlets. Like there's going to be a lot of that sort of push to sit up in the upper orbit so that we can connect as much as possible beyond something that might be a physical limitation because you have the oceans here. Well, it's like, how do we keep people connected all the time? That's why Elon did a big push, to satellite internet.
Right.
It's old technology. It's like K-band, or I don't know what the band's called, but it's old tech that we're pushing out there in the aerospace sector, but that is not, it's like, how do you move beyond the current geographic restrictions that we have? And now all the people are like, well, we got to jump to space. And that's where the spending needs to be. It's like, how do we connect? How do we encrypt? And how do we watch from space?
But also, how do we make sure that I saw that they were showing on the last, what do they call that when they go to the space station, the back and forth? They have a name for it, but they were showing a piece of paint from a satellite that had blown up.
Paint?
A little piece of a chip of paint.
Yeah.
Hit the glass and cracked the glass.
Yeah. So
because it's going so fast. So now we have all this debris.
We have a lot of space junk.
And then at some point that's a piece of paint. Imagine a bolt flying through.
Bolt? Imagine a whole satellite.
It would just go right through then you just killed a bunch of
people. It's a low friction environment up there, and so our engineering's kind of, if you look at those trends, everything is trending towards things sitting in that low Earth orbit. And especially from a defense, it's about how much can we see with that bird's eye view? Just our government in general for a very long time have had satellites that can show us with great quality what's, been going on. But now things are becoming more public and we have the ability to analyze more data, right, because of cloud computing. So now they're like, we have more processing power. How can we watch more? How can we keep more safe? How can we be more global? And you'll see a lot of that spending in the aerospace and defense with that.
Yeah, I think that's good. So we better peace out before they track us.
Yeah, I bet you they have some sort of like LiDAR system that's like coming through and it's just like reading through the walls with the satellite.
Exactly. But this is our last video, guys. Bye.
Yeah. See you later. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to TARTLEcast with your hosts Alexander McKegg and Jason Rigby, where humanity steps into the future and source data defines the path. What's your data worth?